Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 3 July 2017 and I've got a from the sharpening bench video for you guys this morning on a pair of knives from True Saber Limited. True Saber knives out of Central Ohio. The proprietor of True Saber is a gentleman named Todd Walensky. You may remember, if you watched my Bark River grind-in video from just a couple of weeks ago, that Todd made a brief appearance in the video, and I promised that we would have some of his knives on the channel for review. I'm going to do these videos in two parts on a pair of knives each. The first video is going to be the small EDC blades that I got from True Saber for review. These are the Ottawa series of knives, and there are two of them, as you can see. Let me get some of the clutter out of the way here. The first one we're going to look at is the standard Ottawa with a drop point blade and the handle of stunning Cocobolo with black liners. Aluminum Corby bolt pins, aluminum lanyard tube. Stock thickness on the Ottawa is 1/8 inch, and the material is CPM 154 steel. Blade length is 3 1/4 inches. Handle length is 4 inches. 7 1/4 inches overall. The profile of the handle, sort of a modified Coke bottle, and just a graceful curve, letting the hand grip it sort of however the hand wants to. Probably not a superb reverse grip knife, but it's really not a knife you're ever going to employ in that grip. The sheath that comes with the knife is this rather handy device. It is a pouch style sheath that affords the user either vertical belt carry or horizontal carry. And for added retention without the benefit of snaps, the sheath employs a rare earth magnet. You can sort of see the outline of it here. So that's really, even if you don't really shove it in all the way, that knife is never going anywhere. A pretty handy little sheath system. I am not a super proponent of horizontal carry. I'm not a small guy, but I find there's really not a great position on the belt that doesn't leave a protruding handle, even on a super small knife. This isn't a super small knife. It's a full grip 3 1/4 inch bladed EDC knife. By the way, these two Ottawas shipped with identical sheaths. I sort of find that the Ottawa DHA, the sort of modified sheep's foot blade, sort of works better oriented for left-hand carry. I am a lefty, so I kind of appreciate being able to carry that on the left side. Don't know if Todd offers dedicated lefty sheaths for these or not. So let's talk a little bit about who Todd is, what True Saber is, how I came to know him, and how I perceive his sort of focus on making fixed blade knives. I met Todd, I think about a year ago, not quite a year ago, at the September grind-in at Bark River. And he's sort of a quiet, unassuming guy, and it took a little effort over the next two grind-ins on my part sort of to get to know Todd. And as seems to be rather typical in the knife making world, when you meet a guy who's sort of quiet and doesn't say much, as you get to know him, and this is definitely true with Todd, I kind of came to discover, oh, let's say a dry sense of humor underneath that quiet exterior. Todd's background, I believe he was a West Point graduate, served his country admirably in the Army, and then after his military service life, became involved with, I think, the family business, which is Champion Shooters Supply in Central Ohio. And by the way, I will furnish links in the description to both of Todd's websites, True Saber Ltd website, and then also ChampionShooters.com. So you'll have a couple ways to get a hold of him and see what his professional life is about. But although he's into precision shooting and its related hardware, Todd has also been a knife maker for a long while, and more as a hobby than anything else. And then in the last couple of years, he sort of has developed the True Saber brand and its line of knives. The focus of True Saber is precise, thinly ground slicers, knives that will cut with effective and thin edge geometry. And let me kind of show you. This will give you a good indication as we look at the tip of the Ottawa DHA. It gives you a really great cross section of the cutting geometry of the knife. Nice and skinny. Not ridiculously thick material for a 3 1/4 inch blade, with a big high convex grind, come to a really thin dimension at the edge. And the handles are designed out of gorgeous materials, very nicely finished, with stellar ergos. I noticed in sharpening these knives on my convex system that when I had the knife in my hand and I was either drawing it or pushing away from myself, when I found the grip on this handle, the blade did not tend to twist in my sharpening strokes whatsoever. Why do I mention that? Well, if it's secure in hand during sharpening, it's also going to be secure in hand during cutting. And man, they're just a joy to use with these handles. There's nothing outlandish or revolutionary, nothing that looks odd about Todd's work. They're just really, really nicely made, well thought out cutting tools, and with sort of a touch of luxury. Much like a Bark River knife, they are purpose-built, effective cutting tools designed to be user-maintained and sharpened, but they're also beautiful. It's not a slab of 3D machine matte finish G10 on here, held together with some Spartan industrial looking screws. It's a finely crafted piece of cutlery that's designed to be used, maintained, and passed down through generations. And I think that's what Todd really has achieved here. So let's get into some specifics, sort of the high points and the points of the knives that need a little work. Certainly things I've mentioned, stock thickness, grind geometry, cutting ability. Both knives are extremely good tools to use. The finish work, the hafting on the handles, absolutely beautiful. Both underside and spine of the blade material, the tang in the handle, even down the length of the spine on the blade itself, beautifully finished. The grind geometry we've sort of already talked about, and it's really good. A A couple areas where I think Todd could do a little better, and these are sort of, I'm going to call them semi-production models from True Saber. Todd does also make full one-off custom knives, but these, the Ottawas, and the other two we'll look at here in the next couple days, are low-volume, semi-production knives. They're really all one of a kind, but they are common models. So I believe these are water-jetted blade blanks that Todd has heat-treated and he grinds himself. He hafts them himself. So you can buy an Ottawa, and it's going to be a lot like other Ottawas, but it's also going to be hand-finished, hand-hafted with a variety of handles. One of the areas on these production knives I think Todd could do a little better is the consistency of his metal finishing and some of his finish work on his convex grinds. Now both of these knives have been sharpened by me. I didn't really have to remove a lot of material, not any material, to thin the blade to a good usable thickness. They come like that. The edge was sharp, a bit toothy. The issues in the edge geometry I had were, as usual, back here near the sharpening notch. Now the sharpening notch is adequate, but I think you'll be able to see as you sort of look at the finish of the knife, as we get back to the notch, you're going to see that the material thickens just a bit, and you can see more of that high polished finish up the blade near the notch. And I did actually have to thin the blades, both of them, right through here at the plunge grind to get the knives sharp all the way to the base without having a large recurve and a protruding heel. Actually, the modified Wharncliffe, the Ottawa DHA, was worse in that regard. I had to remove a little more material. And for knives that are ground this precisely in all other regards, that's just a little something Todd could do better, to get in more tightly at the plunge, to make use of his notch and have consistent thickness and a straight edge all the way to the notch. Also, I noticed that some of the metal finishing, the blending of the satin finish from top to bottom, was a little blotchy on these. And I don't want to say that's typical. These are knives that, by Todd's own admission, the samples I have, weren't quite to the standard he'd like to make for retailers. So before the video, I kind of finished them up as I put one of my edges on it too. And also, you'll notice the last sort of negative thing I'll mention. If we look at the transition line from the flats on this DHA model to the bevel grind, that transition line wanders sort of significantly, and it's fairly different from side to side. But if this were a mass-produced knife that came off CNC grinders, like a ZT Folder, that'd be shockingly bad. For handmade low-volume production knives, not so much, and especially the metal finishing issue. These are convex ground utility tools, so that finish is going to get redone pretty much every time these are sharpened. So it's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking negatively of, because I know that as soon as I sharpen the knife, it's going to look different anyway. Are they, did these knives come to me quite as well finished as most Bark Rivers? No. Do I care? No. The DHA series, by the way, price-wise, is going to start in the 160s with a base canvas micarta handle with no liners, and then run into the low 200s for premium woods with liners and stuff like that. You've probably looked at the drop point more, so let's kind of talk about this Warney, this modified Wharncliffe. Almost looks like a little cleaver. I wouldn't call it a cleaver-shaped blade because the the geometry of the blade and its intended use doesn't really resemble a cleaver. More of a utility knife with a modified, I should say modified sheep's foot, not a Wharncliffe. A lot like a Chris Reeven Singo blade shape. And what a great cutter, and still a very effective point, you know, if you need to use the point of your knife. I just can't say enough about the ergonomics of these handles. In this vertical or overhand pinch grip, the thumb lies so beautifully in that swale. The back two fingers control the butt of the knife. I can really grip that knife, well, let's say with 3 fingers, thumb and forefinger completely off the knife, and I can't really move it in my hand. The back of the handles are so well designed. In the Saber grip, again, just unbelievably comfortable and in control. The hammer grip, also good. If I'm using a hammer grip and a fixed blade knife, I sort of like a handle that has a profile that lets my thumb fall in front of it. So I've got cutting edge right up to my hand, you know, if I'm feather sticking or something. And they work well in that grip. Do they get sharp? Well, that's sort of the whole point of True Saber. And you know, this is with maybe at 20 minutes or a half an hour of work on each one of these knives. Just whisper quiet, going through the paper. Push cutting effortlessly. You know, it helps if you can see. Doggone camera is just getting away. But man, what nice knives. These are available, I know, at KnivesShipFree.com, the best place to buy knives, period. And I think also at DLT Trading. Do a little blade wipe for you guys. By the way, I haven't talked much about the steel. CPM 154 is a Crucible Industries powdered metal version of 154 CM, as most of you guys probably know. It's a steel that became popular about 4 or 5 years ago. You know, an improvement on the then much loved 154 CM. You know, by its structure, was a welcomed thing. It performs very well. A lot of guys preferred it when it came out. Preferred it to S30V. It seems like it's sort of gotten left behind in the world of super steels as they continue to improve. But here's kind of my take on CPM 154. If you like the way that A2 performs both in use and in sharpening, but you want something a little more stainless, CPM 154 is a great choice. It's got adequate toughness, and it has an ability to take a super fine edge, as you can see, but it's easily resharpenable. Slid right through there so fast I ran out of blades. I would say it's the closest thing I've seen in my convex sharpening experience to a stainless version of A2. And that is not a bad thing. For knives that you're actually going to use, the cutting performance you get when sharp is amazing. The resharpenability is super easy, and edge holding should be way more than adequate. So I think it's a great choice for these knives. So once again, guys, before we go, Todd's websites and contact information will be in the description. You can see more of his offerings at KnivesShipFree.com. And please get a hold of him if you have questions about what he does and how he does it, or if you'd like to talk to him about his products. Please get a hold of him. He is a great guy. And by the way, his website, which is sort of still under construction, gives a little bit of history of him and his company. And he explains a little bit about his logo. Those of you who are disciples of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the one true King, may be interested to know where Todd came up with that logo. I know I was. So check them out, my friends. That's all for this one. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and True Saber knives are sharp.